Hi, this is going to be our fourth video on using the OneSignal web push capabilities that are in alpha now. And in this video, we're going to cover using the REST API. So we're going to be using the REST API to send messages from the server to communicate with the OneSignal application, and that way we can push messages out specific to specific users, or to specific segments, or to specific tags. It's an extensive API. You can go and check the documentation out for the OneSignal REST API at their documentation, for their reference documentation. And here we're looking at the push notification information here, and you'll notice they've got different samples. They have samples in Python, samples in curl. And using curl, it's really easy to look at the attributes and arguments that you're using and passing. And this makes it really easy to actually use XBasic's HTTP fetch, which is what I did in this example that I'm going to show you guys today. I thought that it's an extensive library, and rather than try to write every function and cover every use case, I thought it'd be best just to show you how to use the REST API so that you could figure out how to use it, for your own particular applications. And what I did was to write my XBasic functions. I decided to use a library, so I'm going to use an XBasic function library, and this will be included in the GitHub repo that I'll publish, and I'll leave notes on how to get to that. But if we take a look at this, this is all the XBasic or server-side code, right, that we'll be calling from our web application. Now, what I did was I set up a bunch of shared globals, because for each API call, there's certain things that you always have to pass, right? So I set up the host, I set up the page, I set up the app ID and the API key. These are going to be common to every API call you make. And where you get that information from is going to be, let's get out of that for a second, go over to your application here, go down to settings on your dashboard, and so let's go back there. Settings, go to keys and IDs. And this is your OneSignal app ID, so you copy that. That's what you need, and you're also going to need an API key. When you click on this, it will generate a key, and you want to note that, and you want to keep that secret. As long as nobody has that, they can't communicate with your application through the REST API. So keep it confidential. So that's what I put in these global settings here. And then I set up an object, a settings object, and sort of put everything I need in there to be able to communicate with XBasic using HTTP fetch. So I wrote a number of functions. Here's one, send push to users. Here's another one called send push to segments. And notice we're just passing in an object here that has different properties that are required for, in this case, to segments, or in this case, to users, or in this case, when we want to push to a tag. So all of this sample code is the stuff I want you to study and understand. It's not that difficult to figure this out, and to be able to pass in the arguments that you need, and to put together an object that's going to work. In our case, we put together this settings object, and that's kind of critical for us to be able to communicate with the OneSignal REST API. This also makes debugging a lot easier too. This is really a nice way to do it. So anyway, we'll include this function library. We're going to include that in our test component. Our test component is going to do three things. Let's go to controls here. And first, let's just do a live preview. So in our live preview, we might see, okay, so let's say we want to, let's send a push notification to a specific user. So that's going to be right here. I'm sending to the external ID. So the external ID, remember, we are assigning that when the user logs in through the Alpha security network or through, I did it for the Firebase application as well. And in my case, I hand coded that. I knew, I just, again, for testing, that's all I really cared about was, so what I did was I went to the OneSignal dashboard. I went to my users, and now here I can see my external ID right here. So I just copied a couple of these values in for these testing purposes. But in order to use this, like in a real application, you would query the database. So the extended user table is going to have that in it and as the external ID. And notice I've also, so what I did when I wrote the original application was when they log in, I assign a tag user in this case, and then I assign the email address, and I pull that from the user's login information. So these tags could be anything, though. It could be, you could be segmenting off users, whatever you want. You can have multiple tags per user as well. So in my case, I just have the one, but this is where I got all the information for this testing, right? And in here, we'll assign a push to active and engaged subscription segments. Now, this would be to multiple people. And in our case, we'll see it pops up a couple of times here because I have 3 different browsers that have been authorized to work with web push notifications. So again, this is a nice way to test, right? Another thing that's really nice to be able to do here when you're working with these, when you're working with learning how to interact with the different REST APIs and how to do all the different things, is the integrated debugger here is just super helpful. So for example, let's go back into the XBasic function library here. All right, and let's say we're having trouble with one of these. So let's say I'm having trouble with sending push to users. So this is the code that's going to run, and notice that we're passing in the settings object. So that's kind of that's going to be the thing that drives the whole show here. So let's just put in a debug statement here, and let's go ahead and let's save that. So we're in the function library. We save it. Now we're going to go back to our case. Let's go back over here. Let's run live preview again. I don't know if you have to do that because I just made the change to the library. I'm not sure. But in this case, so that was send push to specific user. So I'm going to click on that. And notice now I've launched the XBasic debugger. And this is a real godsend when you're trying to figure out, what am I sending? Does everything look right, and so on. So here we can take a look at the settings object right here. And I have to spell it right. Settings. And there we go. And now we can see everything that we're passing in. What is in the settings object, right? So I can see the header. I can see everything associated with, here's our body. So we can see, the app ID. We can see that it's formed the way we want. We can see the string for the aliases, and they're all quoted properly and everything. So this is all good. Everything looks good here. Okay. And so here I could just say run, and it would run, and off it goes, right? So nice technique to be able to see what am I really sending in before it goes out, and isolating problems, really helpful to do. So let's just get rid of that there, and go ahead and save that again so we don't have that in there. All right, so let's go look at what we're doing for all the different actions, for all the callbacks that we're making. Remember, we're making a callback for each button push here, and when we click on this, we're doing Ajax callback, and if we look at edit our action, you'll notice we're going to call an internal XBasic function. That's the one that's in the library that we're including with the component. We're going to call a function called send push, and the additional data that we need to submit is going to come from a JavaScript function. So if we highlight that, you can see down here, tip, a JavaScript function can be called to compute the additional data to submit. And that's exactly what we're doing here. So notice here, it's set to user args. That's the function I'm going to call there to get the arguments. So we're using these. JavaScript function will only be to provide arguments to our XBasic server-side code, right? And our XBasic server-side code is coming from our library. It hasn't been defined in XBasic functions here. And you'll notice for each one of these, it's going to be a little bit different, because what we're going to do is we're going to, in this case, we're calling the same function, send push, but we're passing through, we're setting the arguments with set to segments args, right? And also now we're going to go to tags. It's going to be different, and it's going to say set to tag arguments. All right, so that means we've got 3 JavaScript functions to help to populate the arguments that we're passing back to our server-side code. And we'll look at our JavaScript functions here, and here we can see, here we see set to user args. We're setting contents, options, aliases, and we're passing that back as a string. Set to segment args, the contents change a little bit. The option is going to be 2 segments, so the option here is 2 users. We've got 2 segments and 2 tag, and here we pass everything back, and that's what ends up going back to the server. So that's how we populate those arguments. Do I need to save my settings? I don't think I do. But anyway, okay, let's see. We'll go ahead and do that. Keep our fingers crossed it didn't break anything, right? Okay, great. So let's go ahead and, I see, because I was closing the component. I didn't realize that. All right, so let's go over here, and we're going to run this in live preview, and we're going to run this in Chrome so we can see what's going on over here. And we're going to hit Control-Shift-I, and that's going to bring up our JavaScript debugger. So we'll go ahead and start and send a message out. It's all set. Everything looks good. And in this case, nothing went wrong. Everything was good. We can look at the network, and we can look at what did we send through for headers, what did we send through for our payload. Oh, here comes our message. Just took a little while to get here. And what was our response? So we can here notice we're looking at the arguments that we passed in. The option, the contents, the aliases, everything it's formed correctly, and so on. And of course our response. This is what Alpha would have sent back at this point. Now, let's see what happens when there's an error, though. So let's go ahead and introduce an error. In this case, let's introduce an error in JavaScript functions, set to user args, and let's send a malformed entry. So this is supposed to be quoted, and I've removed one of the quotes. So this is going to be malformed. Let's go ahead and save it. Jump back into live preview in Chrome. And that was in the push to segments. So I'm going to say Control-Shift-I. I'm going to bring up the debugger. We're going to go ahead and initiate that. Push to segments was successful. That shouldn't have happened. Was it in push to users? Oh, sorry. It was in push to users where I made the change. Sorry. An error occurred. Request is malformed. Failed to parse JSON body for request to users. So let's see if we can see what happened there. So it's going to be right in here, and here we can look at our payload. And again, we'll look at our aliases. And here's here's where the error is. So this was to go out to 2 different users, and you can see that the code is missing here. Makes it easy for us to spot what's going on here. And of course we can see our response from alpha, and that's that. So basically I showed you how to debug using the XBasic debugger, how to you debug using the JavaScript debugger, and that's really critical when you start playing around with the REST APIs. So what we showed you today was one, how to use an XBasic function library and how to include that in the component. All that sample code will be available to you through GitHub, and then how to pass through arguments to Ajax callbacks to work with the REST API. And I think with this knowledge, you should be able to study the OneSignal API, and if you want to send out emails to people or SMS, or if you want, you can actually create templates. You can do all kinds of stuff with this API. So if you were to write like a administrator dashboard, you could do all kinds of things if you wanted to. So anyway, I hope you learned something from all of this, and thanks for tuning in.